going to be dealing with thank God for the pain. Over this last week or so, my wife and I, we've been dealing and having to endure what's kind of like a pinched nerve. It's funny that both of us would even happen to have this pinched nerve, but we both ended up having some type of pinched nerve. And what happens is, if you ever had a pinched nerve, it kind of is painful. It hurts, it kind of tingles, it kind of, wherever it shows up, that's where the pain is. And the funny thing was, my wife was telling me about her, and I'm telling her about mine. We both tell each other how we hurt, just to try to get some sympathy out of one another. But we both was decided that, hey, you know what? We need to go see some type of doctor or something to help get rid of this pain, because it was bothering us. So we set up appointments, and we went to see the chiropractor that we had an appointment to set up for, and we were in there. I said, I'm in here to tell on her. She in here to tell on me, because she gonna tell you I ain't doing certain things. I'm gonna tell you she ain't doing it. But when we were going there, you know, one of the things that happened was we were hurting, and what we wanted relief from the pain. So we were wanting helping when we came there, and we wanted healing. That was our main focus when we showed up. Help us because we're hurting, and heal us from the pain. That was why we came. We didn't come for any other reason. That's why we showed up. Now, she did some things on us. We left, we felt much better. But I wasn't cured totally of my pain. I was still having some pain. But I thought God had did a miraculous thing on my wife. I thought that. Because we was going down the road, she saw Ross and said, pull over. I said, you ain't hurting anymore. I said, God works in mysterious ways, doesn't he? But anyway, we get there, but the point was that we wanted help, and we wanted somehow to relieve and heal us from this pain. Listen, we got these 10 lepers, same way. They were in pain. That was the first thing they wanted. They wanted help from their pain, because you have to understand what leprosy is. Leprosy, we think, is typically a skin disorder, but it's not. It's a nervous system disorder. And it affects the nerves within the system of the body. And what it does, it causes a great amount of pain. So we have these 10 men here. They were in tremendous type of pain. As a matter of fact, it makes your hands turn to like little claws. It causes great damage. It makes you have a loss of sensation to where you can't even tell when you're hurting. What I mean by that, you can't tell if you're hurting yourself. You have leprosy, you can cut yourself and never even know it. Animals can bite on you and you would never even feel it. You can put a hot plate on you or something like that, fire underneath your arm. You wouldn't know it unless you look at it and see. So you could hurt yourself even beyond the pain that you're already experiencing. See, leprosy does this type of thing to you. And see, we want to, a lot of times, what we want to do is we want to remove all of the pain out of our lives. Right. That's why my wife and I, when we showed up to the doctor, the point was that we wanted to remove the pain from our life. And a lot of times God keeps the pain in our life so that it would be the megaphone that God uses to be able to speak to us. See, a lot of times that's what the pain is there for. And we're asking God to always take away the pain, and God is saying, sometimes I need to give you just a little bit of pain so that you'll be able to feel what it is that he wants you to feel. So we shouldn't be too quick to kind of remove all of the pain in our lives and to say, I want to get rid of all of the pain in our lives. We shouldn't be too quick on that, because God may be using that to be able to speak to us and to get our attention. So we have these 10 men here who had leprosy. They were in pain. Maybe their hands were clawed. Maybe there was a degree of leprosy in which they couldn't feel the sensation of fire within their feet, or they couldn't feel the heat that was on them. But they were there hurting. And the first thing they do is that they cry out to God when they see him from afar. They had to stand away. The reason they had to stand away, they couldn't mingle and mix with society because nobody wanted their disease. So they were standing far away, and the thing they cried out for, they said, Master, have mercy on me. See, they called him and said, Master, have mercy on me. Last week I told you what blind Bartimaeus said, but this week these gentlemen called him by a different name. They called him Master. Now see what that means is Adonai. That would have came out of the Hebrew. That would have meant Adonai. It meant the headship. You are the head for the purpose, listen now, for the purpose of blessing. Oh, they understood. See, they knew what it is they were calling for. So they called him Master, Adonai. The purpose of headship for the purpose. In other words, you control everything. You have all power. That was the statement they were saying. See, so what they were doing is they were acknowledging that they were servants of the Almighty God. That was the first step. See, that's the first step in anything, is to acknowledge that God is the one we serve. To acknowledge that His power is above anything and everything else. When they screamed Adonai, when they screamed Master, they were saying, they were acknowledging that we are your servant. We're here to do what it is you called us to do. I said, that's a great thing. Then they understood. Let me see. When you acknowledge God as Master, you understand that He can supply. See, you understand that. See, they understood when they called Master, they said, hey, number one, we're your servant. Number two is that we recognize that you can supply. See, so when they were calling, Master, have mercy on me, I acknowledge I am your servant, but I understand that you can supply. Here's the third thing, is that you understand that God can empower you to do whatever it is you need to be done. God can give you the power to be able to do. See, they understood God can supply all of my needs. They understood that God can give me all the power that I need to be able to do whatever God has called me to do. See, they understood that by simply using the word Master, Adonai, you, God, I recognize you that I'm your servant. I recognize that you can supply, and I recognize that you can empower me with everything I need. See, God has everything I need. God has everything you need. Well, because He's the Master. And see, as the Master, you're in control of everything. And when somebody's in control of everything, they have everything that you could possibly want or possibly need. So when they were calling out, they were saying, hey, help me with my pain, Master, because I understand you have everything I could possibly need. Now when God has everything, God will give you everything you need.
Yes, He will.
He will.
Yes, He will.
See, in the text when He was calling out Master, He turns and He looks at them and He says two things. He says, I need you to go and I need you to show. That's it. He says, I need you to go. You look at the text. He says, what I need you to do is say, hey, I need you to go. In verse 14, when He saw them and He said to them, hey, go and show. That's all I want you to do. He says, I want you to go and show. What He was telling them, I need you to obey what it is I'm telling you to do. See, what He was giving them is a command of obedience. And what they had to do was simply comply with the order or request of the law and submit themselves to an Almighty God. Says that's what He was telling them to do. He says, if you simply do what I said, God will reward those who are obedient. God will give you a reward if you're not too busy trying to tell God what to do. A lot of times we want to tell God how to do it, when to do it. So we get ready to claim to God, this is how it should be done. See, sometimes we need to just shut up and let God speak. But we want to tell God, this is what you need to do. I'm going to name it, God. Then you do what I tell you to do. And you forget He's Master. Master means He's the servant unto Him. See, when you acknowledge that, then you can't go around telling God how He needs to do things in your life. God was the one that tells them, you go and you show. That's all I'm telling you to do. And when we do what God has called us to do, and we do what God tells us, God rewards those who are obedient. But see, we talk too much. I'm telling you, we talk too much. We want to get up and tell God, I done named this. I named it, God, and since I named it, you do what I say. Wait a minute. Who's the master? Who's the master? So you got to decide, is God the master or not? And if you're the master, then you can call the shots. See, until you're the master, you can't call those shots. You can't tell God what He needs to do with your life. God will dictate to you how it goes. So what He was telling them is that, let me tell you guys, you're the one in pain. as our master. You want my mercy. Well, then I'm going to tell you what to do. Go and show. That's all you got to do. And if you follow what I say, then God will reward that because you've been obedient. Listen how it works. I'll tell you how it works with my kids. You see, they got cars now. See, they're getting older. They got cars now. And so one of the things that happened was one of my kids broke down. Car broke down. You know who they call? They call Daddy. Yeah, that's who they call. They call me. See, they don't call me normally. They wouldn't. They running good. They ain't calling me. Gas? Yeah, I need gas. They call Daddy. See, something break down. They call Daddy. They call Daddy. They, hey, Daddy, you know, my car. And when something happens, I'd say, listen, take it up to the mechanic. Just go up there, show them the car. They'll take care of it. Now listen, they come back. But, Daddy, what if they gonna ask, Daddy, what? Daddy, they got a lot of questions. I said, wait. Just take it up to the mechanic. Go up there, show them the car. That's all you got to do. They want to know what. He ain't going to know what's wrong. He ain't going to want some money. Daddy, did you call the boy? You asked me all that. Listen, I told you, take the car to the mechanic. Go up there and show them the car. And one more question. Hang it up. No more. One more question now. One more question. See, what happens is that if all they had to do was take the car, show it to the mechanic. And because the mechanic and I already worked everything out, everything will be taken care of. See, if you just simply obey, you get rewarded. And he was telling them, look, get up, go, show yourself to the priest. That's all you got to do. He was telling them, I've already worked everything out. No questions need to be brought forth. Just simply tell us, I'm with Jesus. That's all you got to tell them. See, I was saying, all you got to do is tell them my name, and when you show up, they'll take care of it. That's all that has to be done. But see, that's what happens is we then tend to want to ask the question, well, you got to set it up this way. Have you made the call? Is there a coupon that needs to be shown? No. Listen, you just got to do what I tell you. And if you do what I tell you, you're going to get rewarded. And so he was telling them, look, I got everything you need if you're willing to obey. See, all you got to do is go and show. That's what he tells me. He says, and then he says, God will do everything for you. God will do everything you need. He tells them, matter of fact, he says, when they were on their way, he says, what happened is, in the text it says, they then received a cleansing. See, when you receive a cleansing, it's a thing in which you receive called a purification in the text. The text would have been translated that they received some type of purification. In other words, they would have all of a sudden on the way changed to make themselves presentable to the high priest. Oh, you missed it. You missed it. It went right by you. It went right by you. See, as they were on their way to do the going and the showing, it says that they became cleansed. In other words, they became in a state that when they got there to the high priest would announce them to be able to then migrate back into society. They would have been cleansed and ready to go. He says that's where they ended up being. He says now they found themselves to be presentable, or they found themselves in a place where they would show up and everything would be ready just as God has pronounced it. See, what we end up doing is that we think God can change us and clean us up and make us ready. But you got to understand that one man's trash is another man's treasure. That's the way I heard it, see. So a lot of times we look like trash and no one else want to talk to us or mingle with us, but that's the way it looks. But God takes trash and he turns it into a treasure. He makes it something like a jewel that's presentable that everybody would look at and say, that is beautiful. I'll tell you, like a girl named Carol Ray told, I read her article. You know, in her article, she says that while she was married, she said the man that she was married to abused her, treated her bad, called her names. And she said in the article, she said she felt so bad about herself. And then she wrote at the last sentence, she said, I was his trash. That's what she wrote. She said, I was abused, I was beaten down, I was talked about and ridiculed. And then she wrote in the last, I was his trash. Then she writes and turns in the next paragraph and she says, hey, but I met another man. And then he says, this man cherished me. He loved me. He treated me with integrity. He called me my name. He helped build me up. And then she writes at the last sentence, I was his treasure. And I said, that's it right there. What some people see as trash, somebody else sees as a beautiful treasure. And that's the way it was. God saw them, and then society saw them as trash. But God said, within you is a beautiful treasure that simply needs to come out. And they were saying, God, can you help me with my pain? And they were saying, thank God for the pain. You know why? Because then God stepped in and he changed their life because of all the pain that they were going through. See, we want to try to get rid of the pain. God says you better thank God for that pain. You better thank God that it's the megaphone that God uses to get your attention. We should thank God and say, God, just help me through the pain. You don't have to take it all away. Just help me through this thing. So they were saying, look, help me with the pain. Then he goes and says, there's healing for the pain. Let me show you in the text in verse 15. And he takes out and he says, now one of them, when he saw that he had been healed, I'm going to stop right there. He said, when he had been healed. See, he was on his way. He got cleansed. Now he's presentable. They're able to come back in society, mingle with people, get around your family and friends again. You're not an outcast, isolated from everybody. And so all of a sudden now they said, oh, I'm healed. And see, the text meant that they were healed. In other words, you were released from your illness or pain. Oh, yes. That's how it says. It says they were all of a sudden released from their illness, and they were released from their pain. So now it's gone, okay? And then all of a sudden they said, oh, my pain's gone. Now how am I going to behave? And look at the text. The text says in verse 15, he said, when one of them saw he had been healed, says, one then turned back and glorified God. And let me tell you this. Sometimes we have to go and revisit our pain. Yeah, you don't like that. You don't like that. I'm going to move on. See, sometimes you have to go and revisit your pain. You have to go back and see where you were hurt. You have to go back to that situation. You got to be able to go back and look around and survey that pain and say, yeah, this is where I was. I was hurting, and God moved me. See, because to see the glory of God, sometimes you got to go back and visit. See, that's why I like those shows like Where Are They Now? You ever seen those shows? 2020, Prime Time, Where Are They Now? In those shows, they always take the story of that person. That person, you hear that story. And in that story, they'll tell you, yeah, this is how my life went. And they'll tell you I was hurting this day. And I was found in the gutter right here. And they'll be walking around with the camera. That's where I laid. I had a needle in my arm right there. They would say, this is where I found I was at my lowest. And then they'll tell you about how all of a sudden they got up and they say, I'm in front of you today because of what has happened in my life. See, what they were doing was they were going back and revisiting the pain. They were going back and looking and surveying of all the things that had happened. And then they turn around and say, I'm no longer there. Something has intervened. Something has changed my life. And see, what they could say is that God changed their life. God has all of a sudden brought them out of what they call the muck and the mire and moved them forward. He says, hey, sometimes you got to go revisit that thing. So they said there's this one guy that turned back and said, I'm going to go back and revisit where I was, where God brought me from, how he pushed me out of that thing and moved me forward. He said, I'm going back to take a look. And then Christ said, hey, wasn't there 9 others? You're the only one. What about the other 9? Where are they? Did they not come back? What's wrong with them? A lot of times we just want the miracle. We don't want the master. We want God's mercy, but we don't want the master. See, a lot of times that's what we want. And see, when we finally get to the status that we want, we all of a sudden ready to glorify the world instead of glorifying God. So we'll go back and step out into the world. We at the club shaking it down. Hey, you can shake before the hip was hurt. And hip was hurt. You were in there trying to move. Yeah. And now you got the groove back and you can't tell me nothing. You see, all of a sudden it's different. All of a sudden then you move back into society when God has taken away all of the pain that had been in your life, and now you're ready to shake and go. And you got your car going, everything's working. You wanted the miracles that God had provided. You knew He was the master, and you said, I want the mercy, I just don't want you. 9 of them said, I don't want you. But I'll take what you give. I'll take your mercy. I'll take all of your blessings, but I don't want you. Oh, that's what the statement was. See, that's what the statement was. They said, I'm ready to go back and mingle. I like that you changed my status. I like that you've given me a cure. I just don't want you. See, I used to minister in the jail. I used to be there. Man, I used to go in there, and I used to be in there, and I would just, man, guys would be in there. Man, these guys hungry.
Yeah.
They were hungry.
Yeah.
In the jail.
Yeah.
And then, when they get out, hey, man, come visit. And I see them guys riding down the street, holding their pants up, throwing 2 fingers at me. No, I can't come up there. But they are happy. Their status changed. But then they don't want to then go back and acknowledge who changed the status. But when you're in your pain and stuck in your situation, oh, you're ready to give God all kinds of glory. But when God all of a sudden brings in that mercy and those miracles and then move you out of your pain, then all of a sudden you don't know God. How can that be? Unless all you wanted was the miracle and all you wanted was His mercy, you didn't want the master. But you knew who He was because you addressed Him that way. See, a lot of times we know who He is. We know what He can do. And we'll come in and address Him with all the proper names. And we want everything that God will bestow. Give me your blessing, God. I just don't want you. Because you're going to require too much from me. You're going to want me to live a life that glorifies you. I don't want that. I want to run the street. That's the statement of these guys. So they went on and said, look, I've got to glorify the world as opposed to glorifying God. That right there. I should stop and we all should get a shout. Because when you're to glorify God, it means you come back and give Him all the esteem for who He is and what He's done. That means you're to give Him all the glory that is due Him. See, so when we come on Sunday morning, whoo, boy, Sunday morning should be just an outpouring of what and who God is. So then we come with esteeming God and talking about how great God is. Not so much of what God has done, because listen, God can keep you as an outcast. He don't have to change your status or your situation. But when we come on Sunday, we're ready to esteem it. Do like this one that came back and talk about the glory of God and who He is and how God has been moving within your life. See, those are the things we should do when we esteem and glorify an almighty God. See, I'm going to give it to you another way. I'm going to give it to you like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego gave. See, in Daniel 3, you guys remember with Nebuchadnezzar, he was told, he said, look, if you don't bow down before my God, who I am, then he said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw you into the fiery furnace. And then he tells them, oh, I love the text, because the text says, then he said, who? No. Who gonna save you then? I'm going to tell them, who gonna save you then? See, and then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, hey, we're not bowing down before your God. Your graven images are nothing like that. And they said, as a matter of fact, you can throw us into the fiery furnace. And he said, even if God don't do anything. Now listen, even if God don't do anything. Oh, you missed it right there. They said, even if God does not do anything. So what they were saying is not about the what God does for me. I'm bowing down just because of who He is. See, what they did was they were concerned with the what. God, you gave me what? The other came back, I'm concerned with the who. And so you got to be concerned with who God is. And that's who we glorify. So when the Nebuchadnezzar looked in the furnace, he said, who is that in there with me? It went right back to the who. See, so when we come to esteem and glorify God, it's not what God has done for you. No, it's not what he does, because if he does nothing at all, guess what? He's still who he is. He still remains the same. And he's still good. See, we need healing from our pain, help with our pain. But listen, the last thing is in the verse. He says, you need to stand up. In the last verse, he says, stand up and go. He said, your faith has made you well. Now, there's a healing of your pain, but it's not always the spiritual pain. See, they were healed physically. They went out into the world, healed, mingling with society, dancing again, limping no more. All of them looking good now, but still they were not yet fully cured. See, it wasn't until the last one comes back. He says, I've healed you physically. I've given you some blessings and some miracles. See, that's nothing. That's nothing. It is when God touches the spirit. That's when things change. See, sometimes we get confused and think that God has touched us on the outward, and we think, oh, I'm good. No, it don't work that way. It only works good when the heart is changed. When God touches the spirituality of a man. When he changes the heart within. See, because that's what God wants to do. Many people recognize God as master. Many people do. Many people recognize the power of God. Many people who are even unsaved recognize that God can do a whole bunch of things. Even the devil knew that. He recognized what God can do and how he can do it. The devil even would come and sit in the church right by us. The devil would mingle in our group. He didn't even do all of that. But it's only those who have a spirit and the healing that comes through the spirit. That's when you believe. That's when you get a healing that takes place. That's when God removes the pain out of your life. See, that's when it all takes place. Because otherwise, we're no different than the other nine. See, we come here because of what God has done. We missed the boat. We come here because who God is. Just simply, he's God. And if God does nothing in our life, does no blessing whatsoever, no miracle, and shows no mercy, he's still an almighty God. And he's still worth glorifying no matter what we do, no matter what he's given us, and no matter what he takes away from our life. He's still worth glorifying because he is simply God. Let me tell you about Dr. Paul W. Brandt. Brandt, he was working with leprosy victims. He spent his whole life and his whole ministry working with people of leprosy. Now, he came to the conclusion that if you're in a certain stage in leprosy, then you can't give the disease to no one else. That was his conclusion. Until he came back from a long train trip. And he came back to America. He came on this train trip. And when he got up, Paul Bryant said, I couldn't feel any sensation in my leg. And he said he picked up a pen and he poked himself in the leg. He said he couldn't feel nothing. He said he saw the blood, but he couldn't feel the pain. He said that was a problem. He said he then began to think about his life, the work he was doing with people and trying to help them overcome leprosy. He said he then began to think about how he was going to have to change his life, and his life is going to be as a leper. How he was going to be outcast from society. How he was going to be isolated. How he couldn't be around his friends. And he began to say, I don't know if I want to live that life. But he said, I think I've got the disease leprosy. He went to bed. Next morning, he gets up. He stands up and he goes back to get that needle again. And he then pokes himself in the leg with that needle. Saying, if I don't hear anything, if I don't feel anything now, I surely got the disease. He said at that point, he began to yell out because he felt that needle. He began to say, woo! He said he screamed real loud. And he said, now every time I hit my hand, I cut it, he said, I can feel the pain. He said, when I stomp my toe, he said, I can feel the pain. Dr. Brian writes and concludes, he says, thank God for the pain. Dr. Brian ends, and he said, I thank God for the pain. See, sometimes we just got to simply thank God for the pain. Because we can recognize who he is and the things that God has for you in your life. Listen, God wants to bless you more than anybody in this world. He wants to bless you. God wants to do things for you. But see, it's the pain sometimes that God sends you through so that you would help and cry out for him. It's the pain so that you can realize his healing that he can do physically. But it's the pain that you can realize that God can heal spiritually. That's the type of God we have. And if you believe it, say amen.